Hi everybody, Daniel here from Dan Has Fun, and we have more Advance Wars 2 Black Hole Rising. This is the final mission in the regular campaign, and we are doing things a little bit differently this time around. Rather than doing it live, we are actually narrating this after the fact, mainly because this video is a really long video. And rather than the last episode where we kind of chopped out the boring bits, there isn't really going to be a super dull component of this. So what I'm going to do instead is, as I said, narrate on the top of it after it's already happened, and we'll just alter the speed as we go. So obviously right now it's in regular speed. As you'd imagine, I'm kind of going through who I was going to pick at the time. There's a few good options for this. I ended up with a combination of Colin, Eagle, and Max. Probably not a particularly original combination, it has to be said. As we get into, as I said, the final mission, Mission 34, Final Front. You'll also notice the actual screen layout is a little bit different this time around, because, spoiler, this video was actually the first video that I recorded. I ended up recording a video offline, not narrating it, just kind of thinking, hey, you know, do I have the tech to do what I need to do to make the videos, to make the channel happen in the first place? Lo and behold, we did. So I still have this file. I'm going to have to edit it a little bit because I'm pretty sure that I had to unload the dishwasher part way through, and I think I had to let dogs out on a certain occasion. So there's going to be a bit of a weird gap that we're going to have to cut out occasionally, but we'll cross that when we get there. Anyway, this mission, you get 30 days. The last mission should have had a timer, like I said. This one certainly does. It's a massive map. There are a couple of big cannons, as I'm showing here. The way to defeat this mission is to take out the special, one-of-a-kind laser that Lash built for Sturm. It will fire every 7 turns, which makes it sound like it's not too bad, right? But what ends up happening is the middle of the screen, there'll be a 3-tile wide column that every unit there that isn't Sturm's gets hit for 8 points of damage. And Colin's headquarters is right in the middle. Colin is a great pick, though, to be this commander in the middle. You'd think he would have a really hard time taking on Sturm because of his just reduced firepower. But in reality, the middle commanding officer really only has to do 2 things. The first is not die. It's a bit like in the Advance Wars 1, like the middle CO takes a massive brunt of the attack. And other than that, the only thing that Colin's going to have to do beyond just not die is try and prevent Sturm from capturing any of the forward-facing bases. Really, the way that this mission is doable in a reasonable amount of time is purely and simply through making sure that he can only produce units on the opposite end of the map. And then it takes him so long to get there, even with his amazing 1 unit for all tile movement rate, it will still take him an eternity to get anything through to us. Meanwhile, on the flanks, we've got Eagle and Max. Mainly because, well, they're 2 of the 3 best users of air units. Obviously, Cambay would be up there as well, but he has the major downside of being incredibly expensive. Whereas, obviously, the other 2 just have neutral, regular costs. So that's why we're using them. So the plan is that Colin holds down the fort in the middle, Eagle on the left or Max on the right, depending who is more successful, will then try and race through the series of pipeworks and busting the seams to try and get to the laser cannon at the very, very top. What I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to increase the speed, which you'll see in the top right corner, because what I'm actually doing is I'm playing this back in VLC player. And then as a result, I'm kind of narrating on top of it. We want to go up to, let's go to 2.5 times speed. There we go. And what I'm also going to be doing, so you don't listen to absolutely horrendous music in the background, because these commanding officer themes sped up will sound something wickedly bad. What we'll end up doing, I have the tracks for all of the commanding officers. I'll just lay them on top just so you have some more natural sound to listen to. It's going to be a bit more editing work for me, but it's a sacrifice I'm more than willing to make. It'll just be some time over the Easter weekend just so you have some context for when this is being done. It's nice that I have the Friday off. Today is Friday, the 15th of April for me. Obviously, this video will not come out for probably a couple of weeks after that, but just so you have a rough idea of when I'm doing what I'm doing. Not very far ahead in terms of backlog. I did also acknowledge on my Facebook page today, people that watch Europa Universalis 4, I put a memo in the videos being like, hey, these videos are pretty loud, there's a lot of background music, beautiful music, like the music's great, I love the music in that game, but it was incredibly loud. And I realized the reason why that had happened is that I was unable to split the audio of the game music away from my voice purely because I thought I'd had them on separate tracks, and I did not. So I ended up going in to try and edit them, and I was like, oh, it's just one block of audio. And I'm sure somebody with more talent than I would be able to go in there and fix it anyway. But I did not have the skill to do it. So luckily it wasn't absolutely obnoxiously loud. But yeah, at least going forwards we shouldn't have as much of that problem. It's really hard to gauge how good, how loud background should be, because obviously, as you can see right now, I'm wearing earphones, right? And when you wear earphones versus, say, watching a YouTube video on the television, the amount of background music you want, I think, varies quite a lot. I feel like you want a lot more of it when you're watching it on the TV. That might be just me. Definitely put your opinions out there in case you think it's just me being crazy, or if you think I've actually got some validity towards that argument. But anyway, if we go back to this video just for the moment, we do get a couple of missiles at the start, and much like we did at the end of the previous mission that we had missiles, we're going to use them fairly early just to slow Sturm's advance down a bit, because even with 3 commanding officers, he is definitely going to outproduce us in terms of units. We have no way of keeping up with him for unit production. Conveniently, we did end up grabbing the base there for Max on the right-hand side, just inside the first pipe. And really, that's not to produce any great units, that's just to slow Sturm down. I had a much more difficult time trying to hold down Eagle's side of the map. Don't know why, sometimes one side's just easier than the other, and Max had a pretty easy time of it, and my Eagle flank just didn't. Colin, so far he's doing alright. We've got 25 days left, so the cannon hasn't fired yet. I am very, very cautious watching where the regular big cannons can fire. It makes it difficult because there's a small island in the in the lake there, you'll notice has 2 bases. We can't realistically capture those bases until the cannons have gone, and, well, the cannons don't necessarily have to go, but we have to make sure that no matter what happens, Sturm doesn't get those 2 bases, because if he does, then he's going to have units spawning right on my doorstep, and I'm going to have major issues. It's also very sad when you see a Colin bomber there attack a tank on a bridge, so it has no defense whatsoever, and you do 7 hit points of damage. It doesn't even come close to killing it, which is very, very sad. Eagle does struggle in this, just because the game smartly, whether it was intentionally or not, did keep throwing anti-airs down the left-hand side of the map. A lot more than it did on the right-hand side, which is interesting, despite the fact that I was using air units with Max as well. It seemed much less inclined to spawn anti-air units. We do end up having to deal with a fighter, but it seemed much less inclined to start going for anti-air defense. Really, and this is especially true in the hard campaign. So the hard campaign final mission, the layout is completely different to this. But the final mission hard campaign, I would argue, is actually way easier than it is in regular campaign. Because what ends up happening is Sturm starts with so many bases in the hard campaign that the AI doesn't know how to prioritize where it should be building, so it ends up just building nothing in any of any significance really in any of its bases, leading to kind of this hilarious scenario where even though he should massively outnumber you, he never really does. So he never crushes any of the 3 commanding officers, meaning you can just slowly push him back all 3 times. And don't get me wrong, there's still a timer, but the timer's much easier to achieve, I would say, in the hard campaign as well. It's weird how it goes. I guess that's just a flaw of the AI. It doesn't know how to prioritize really anything in this game. But we've seen that, right? We have certainly seen that over the course of the game, the AI, at least in this version, doesn't really have any awareness whatsoever. So if it can attack a unit, it will probably go and attack that unit. That's really all the AI thinks about. And as a result, even a person who's, I would say a fairly average player, maybe just a fraction above average because I played it so many times, can really deal with this game without too many challenges whatsoever. There's the fighter, by the way. We have a bomber and a battle copter, so that's a little bit terrifying for us. Well, we'll keep that on. This was a mistake, though. I did end up moving my battle copter outside of my base so I could get an anti-air to get the fighter, but I then left the battle copter in the range of said fighter, which I know why I did it. It was just so that the bomber could get a free pass. Here's the laser, by the way. We don't get to see anything. I don't know why that happens either. So with everything else, all the other cannons and turrets, well, the cannons in particular, the game loves to zoom in on the unit it's hitting, right? Because it's hitting a single target. But when it's a weapon that hits multiple targets based on a range, it doesn't even zoom the camera. So you just don't see anything. But much like any other cannon, it's just got 99 hit points at the front. So all we have to do is run in with a max bomber and it's a one-shot. That's another reason why we pick max. If you end up picking a leader like Andy, for example, who is actually also a very good candidate for the middle CO, because when Sturm hits him for 8 with his superpower, Andy can heal potentially 5 of it back. So he is also a pretty good pick. I just didn't pick him in the middle because I wanted max on the right, and you could only have 1 commanding officer per nation. So you couldn't have, say, Eagle on the left, Drake on the right, Jess in the middle. Why you would ever want that, I don't know, but you couldn't do it even if you wanted to. I guess it's just implied that, one nation doesn't have enough resources to fund the whole thing. But then again, why couldn't the other nation supply the units and you supply the commanding officer? I don't know. It's advanced force logic. Don't think too much in it. Maybe they just didn't have 3 different shades of the colour green available. Yeah, we only have 1 shade of green, so we can't have light green, dark green, and middle green. I don't know. Either way, it's fine. We'll deal with it is. While this part of the mission is going on, because, in all honesty, the first phase of this map is just a mess. Everybody kind of gets stuck in the middle, and you are very, very slowly going to push past the base there that I end up capturing with Max. So I thought in the meantime, while we kind of let that do its thing in the background, I was trying to think, maybe we should just talk about kind of ranking each commanding officer, at least per its nation. Just so we can kind of at least think about it a bit, because we only give like a brief overview of each commanding officer pretty much at the time, right? So it might be nice to give them a little bit of their own kind of moment while we're going through this. So if we do start with Orange Star, given we're looking at it, and definitely hit that Neo tank, beautiful. Obviously we've played with 3. We've played with Andy, we're currently playing with Max, and we've played with Sammy. Orange Star in this game has 2 other commanding officers that you never play as in the main campaign. Hatchie, the guy that's running the shop, and Nell, the your supervisor, your Karen, effectively. So we have 5 COs to kind of rank. Now, I do know that unlocking Hatchie initially, as a kid, when I unlocked Hatchie, I was like, oh, it's just an old man. He's a bit like Colin. And the penny hadn't dropped at that point that Colin actually is a fantastic commanding officer, because when you're a kid, you just go, who can hit the hardest, who will win the fight. Obviously, as we get older, we hopefully get a bit more wise, and it actually kind of, works out that Hatchie is crazy good. Actually, I would say he is the best commanding officer, definitely an Orange Star, just because he's cheaper, and he does have the ability, when he uses his superpower, to buy land units in cities. So a lot of maps, especially, PvP, are going to set it up in such a way so that the cities are in the middle, you have bases on each side, unless it's a pre-deployed. But Hatchie doesn't play by the same rules as everybody else, so he can just spawn units right in the middle of combat and ruin everybody's day, and he gets a massive discount when he does it. And just through sheer numbers, he will obliterate practically every other CO. So he's definitely top of the pile. We haven't seen Nell either, but Nell as a commanding officer just abuses the luck mechanic. So I know I've talked about it a few times, how when we're looking at a calculation, maybe it will say, you know, a person's going to do 78% with their bomber, for example, but you end up knocking 8 hit points off. And it's because there's a luck component in the dice roll, a bit like there is in, you know, a lot of strategy games, even the more kind of simple ones at the time, like Pokemon. Obviously, there's going to be a bit of a dice roll in there for just how much damage is it going to do. Nell has a much higher top end for luck, so she can do significantly more damage on top of the amount that it says she's meant to do, and her CO and superpowers make that bar even higher. So you can end up in like a baffling scenario where full hit point infantry for Nell could possibly wipe like 5 hit points off a Neo tank when she's using a superpower. Which, yes, it's unpredictable, but that's a crazy thing. And, you know, the amount of money that you're doing in terms, you know, money damage is really the way of thinking about it. The amount of financial damage that you would do to your opponent in that scenario is just crippling. So she is probably in second, although in PvP, Sammy is also very, very useful, especially on really small maps. Apparently, as a human right now, I was, you know, at the time, I was really thinking, how am I going to approach this? Because I'm thinking out loud to myself at the time that Eagle is really not doing very well. My left flank is really, really struggling. And I'm also thinking, well, do I want to use my little power now and just try and spam some troops out, which is what I do. So yeah, so I would put Nell in there as second because she's so versatile. Sammy in a really, really small map is really top-notch because she obviously specializes in troops that have very, very poor movement. You know, 3 and 2 respectively for infantry and mechs. And obviously a really, really small map means a really greater chance of having a headquarters capture. Her weaknesses in combat with vehicles is not great, but as we've seen with Colin, having slightly reduced attack power is not a crippling issue. But it does mean she's far less versatile than either of the other 2 COs I'd rank above her. Although, still, her superpower is fantastic. Being able to capture a headquarters in 1 turn is pretty wild. And the fact that you could combine that in dual strike with Eagle, so you could effectively move 3 times in 1 turn, is just absolutely bonkers. We'll save discussion of tag powers for another day because they're mad. Meanwhile, I am getting one of Eagle's battle copters up there just to try and wail away at some of the pipe seams to try and break a gap through. But he's still having a pretty difficult time of it. Although at least in terms of numbers on his flank, we are now we're starting to get ahead. That medium tank that Sturm sent really, really caused some issues for Eagle because his, Sturm's good combat stats combined with the fact that most of the units I'm going to be pumping out are battle copters grinds us down at about the same rate as him, but he builds more units. That's why it's so tricky. Meanwhile, this medium tank decided to block Max's bomber, which was pretty rude of it. I'd managed to get the fighter into repair mode, so my plan was to try and rush through with the bomber while the fighter wouldn't pursue me. And because it's in repair mode, it's sitting on the airport, so he's not building more air units on that side. And we're just, holding down the base we had as a forward settle, just with our mechs and infantry, just to slow them down. There's another horrible meteor. Didn't fully ruin our day, thank goodness. But yeah, our mech's here just to try and slow the Neo tank down. We don't want the Neo tank coming down and flanking Colin and ruining his day further. So that's why we're blocking. But yeah, in terms of COs then, Andy is definitely more versatile than Sammy, but he just doesn't quite have the same cutting edge. He's pretty close, I would say, to Sammy. Obviously in bigger maps, I would say he's arguably better than Sammy. but his top-end performance is nowhere near as high as Sammy's is in specific circumstances. He's just fairly good all round. Obviously, none of his troops have any bonuses to anything, but then again, they don't have any weaknesses either. And his superpower is very, very good, especially considering it only costs 6 star. But his real lack of overall specialty really hurts from a ranking perspective. Having said that, he is the best CO against Hawk and against Olaf and against Drake because of his healing capacity. So against those 3, absolutely. But I would argue 2 of those 3 are pretty bad anyway. So you wouldn't need a special CO to counter them, honestly. And that would mean I'd have Max at the bottom of my list of COs from Orange Star, at least in this game. In Advance Wars 1, he had a 50% bonus to his direct combat strength, which is ludicrous. Obviously, it's only 20 now, and it's just not enough to really hold a candle against any other CO in his own nation. Especially because his superpower is just not as good as Andy's. He feels like he's just Andy with a bit more specialization, but not enough love was given to him. He definitely needed nerfing, don't get me wrong, but he got nerfed hard. So that's the order I'd put them in. So it would be Hatchie, Nell, Sammy, Andy, Max. Obviously this is purely my opinion, and anybody who has a different opinion or agrees with me, I always like to hear from. Please do certainly let me know. We are trying in vain, and we finally did lose a base on that little island. You'll notice I even sacrificed the Neo tank with Colin to try and stop it from happening, because we just do not want him spawning units right on my doorstep. Blue Moon's easier because in this game there's only 3 COs, and really it's a no-brainer. Like, for me, Colin is definitely the best of the 3. If you're playing in PvP. If you're playing in story mode, where the AI is very, very dumb, actually Grit comes pretty close, because you can play as a turtle a lot easier, I would say, against the AI than you can against a human player. Grit just struggles to push forwards, which is why in PvP he doesn't do quite so well. At least from what I've been told, I don't do PvP a ton. So yeah, Colin's definitely top of the tree. His ability to pretty much just spawn infinite money, and therefore infinite units, you just can't beat it. He will grind nigh on everybody else down. Grid is very, very good, and had he been in almost any other nation, he would be competing for top spot, but not in Blue Moon. I would say he's leagues ahead of all 3 Green Earth. He would be top if he was a Green Earth CO, but he's not. Shame for him, I guess, but what you gonna do? And then that means, obviously, by extension, that Olaf is last in the list, and Olaf is by far and away the worst Blue Moon CO. And he is he's in a pretty low tier, I would say, in general throughout this game, and throughout the entire franchise. He's not a good CO. Yes, causing snow can be a mild inconvenience for an opponent, and, you know, doing 2 hit points with a damage globally is great, but his troops are Andy generic beyond that, and it's not as if when it snows he gets, you know, a big bonus to his stats or anything. He just can move normally. There's our bomber getting through, by the way. We made it. Our bomber on the right hand side has finally made it through the gap between the pipes, which is awesome. So yeah, so Olaf's definitely the bottom there. We'll save the other 2 main nations, and then we'll talk about Black Hole afterwards. In a few minutes' time. We kind of just want to do a sit rep on where we are right now. So Sturm is wrecking our face. I'm going to slow this down just for a moment. Back down to regular old speed. There we go. That probably looked weird mid-animation. So where are we right now? So we're getting a lot of unit attrition. This is not going to be a great score, don't get me wrong. But what are we going to do? So yeah, we are in the situation where he does have a bomber, he's got a base down there, he's got some indirects, which is pretty scary, and he's going to start doing the AI thing of just putting a few units there and then trying to push. Colin does have some indirects, but his issue is because of the laser, we can't stay there for that long, right? There we go. Alrighty. So, that was a nice old jump cut. I know at the time, like I said, I had to go and do something, so I saved first. Anyway, Colin's in the scenario, and you'll notice some of the animations are being cut off because, well, I had a plan to turn this into a fully fledged video series. So you're kind of getting a halfway house between visual B and visual no visuals because the combat's starting, and then I'm just like, nah, I don't need to see the combat right now. I don't know why I didn't just flip it to no visuals when I was playing by myself, but what are you going to do? Anyway, Colin, we'll have to move all our units over to the side because we're about to get lasered. And we do have to be very, very careful about just spawning battlecopters because, well, there's 2 anti-airs and a missile that's sitting on the other side. All Colin has to do is kind of just pass time. Now that we've lost the base, we just have to kind of block and frustrate and just keep them away from our buildings on our side. So that's all we have to do there. We do want to move our bomber. We're going to put it on that base so he can't spawn anything. Again, we want to try and prevent as much forward building as possible. So that's the key component there. And as we have a little look around here, again, we're still doing this narration, you know, kind of post the event. We do have quite a lot of Colin's units up here. I put a lot of infantry in this corner so that Max wouldn't have to spam as much in the way of mech and infantry spam to hold down that base and distract the AI. But a sheer volume of units meant the AI kind of got stuck concentrating on them unnecessarily, which is what allowed Max's bomber to slip through. And honestly, Eagle hasn't really made a huge amount of progress. He's still slowly turning the tide on Sturm, but not massively. So let's speed this back up. I'm going to speed it back up to 2.5 times, like that. And then really, all we're thinking about is taking a transport copter up there with an infantry, and do we want to go and utilize some of the missile silos in the corner of the maps? They're potentially just distraction, but I feel like they're still worth going for. So, pre-jump cut, we were talking about kind of ranking commanding officers within their nation. So we've already done Orange Star, we've already done Blue Moon. Yellow Comet also only have 3 commanding officers in this game. Kanbei, Sonya, and Sensei. Obviously, Sonya is very, very situational, whereas, say, Kanbei is great on every map. Kanbei is, in my mind, up with Colin in terms of how good he is. He might actually even be better than Colin. I don't know which is better of the two, but they're both very, very good. Obviously, it's an entirely different ideology. Kanbei is really, really expensive, but in this game, that 30% bonus to attack and defense is just monstrous. And it's why it is tempting to use him against Sturm, but he just is too slow in building units to really make that work. I would still say he is the best of the 3 COs in Yellow Comet, though. So Sensei is pretty good, though, it has to be said. Sensei, you tend to really only build 3 units as Sensei. Unless you're stupid like me and you really wanted to show how, how you really meant to go about a map. But realistically, with Sensei, you build infantry, you build mechs, and you build battlecopters. And that's it. Because he doesn't really need anything else. Everything else is pretty weak for him. Obviously his transports are good, but you don't have to build a ton of them usually. The odd transport copter or 2 can help kind of move units around, move the armies in general around. But I find he really does work particularly well again on smaller maps because that mech spam really, really does help out. He, along with Sammy, are both very, very good at the mech spam game. Obviously, her infantry and mech get a power increase and potential movement increases. Sensei's get strength increase as well, but in his case, his CO and superpower helps complement that as well, right? And then you can either just utilize all the mechs that you've got on your superpower or join them together to make some extra money to build more battlecopters. His battlecopters are stupid powerful. As we saw, even in the previous mission, without any boosts, it was doing 2/3 to a cruiser from Sturm, which is mad. No, very, very strong indeed. Very highly rated CO in my opinion. Just not very flexible. And honestly, the fact that his naval units suck, who cares? Who uses naval units, really, in this game, other than in the story mode, when there's a couple of occasions where you really have to, especially when you talk about Drake missions. But you very, very seldom build naval units of your own. They're just way too expensive, and they're pretty much worse than planes and ships. Planes, airplanes, and bombers, fighters are just better than them in every single way. Other than they just, air units don't get defense. But who cares? They're attacking all the time first anyway. We've been saving our superpower for a while because we want to try and get to the pipe seams and try and break through with them in one hit as much as we can. So that's why we're waiting. We don't need to use it with Max yet. So yeah, so very, very easy in my mind for Yellow Comet. We have Kanbei, Sensei, Sonya. Sonya obviously is only any good in Fog of War. And yeah, her vision's great in Fog of War. But she still only has standard strength troops. Are actually slightly worse than normal because she has poor luck. Or at least neutral luck. Every other CO in this game has slight good luck. Nell has a lot more of it. She has kind of a balance. So sometimes she's not quite doing as much. Also, that meteorite hurt like Billy-O. When you get the meteorite and the laser in back-to-back turns, it causes some major old issues. And I definitely should have spread the units out more than I did. It was a mistake. But that shows what happens. You make one kind of error in this mission, Colin is just going to have to hold out at this point. There's no advancing for him. There's a bomb that's gone for a runner, on each side as it is, but nothing else really with Colin is going forwards. He just doesn't have the capacity at this point. Yeah, it can go from everything's fine to, oh my god, everything's on fire very, very quickly. Apparently I brought my mouse back for a second there too. I know, I left my mouse in at the start of the very beginning of the video. Again, didn't plan actually to make a YouTube channel, and I was like, let's go for it. It's been a decade since we did it, why not, right? So yeah, we're 3 nations in. We've got to keep thinking ahead. So next up would be Green Earth, and Green Earth definitely have the worst commanding officers in this game. Eagle is, in my opinion, by far and away the best of the 3, and he's not that great in this game. Superpower is fantastic, but it's really expensive at 9 stars, and his air units are only slightly better than average. The lack of fuel consumption really doesn't come up most of the time, especially if you are playing against another human. Against the AI, it can be a little bit more helpful, but against a person, nobody cares. Unit's not going to last long enough for it to matter. But he's still the best commanding officer, mainly because Drake and Jess both suck. Really, which one of the two sucks less? It's pretty close. I would say Drake is a fractionally better commanding officer than Jess, purely because of his global 2 damage from his superpower, and more likely you spamming his little power and doing 1 hit point of damage for everybody else on the field, and halving the fuel. Which, again, in PvP, it may not be quite as important, but in-game, against the AI, that's actually really helpful, because the AI, when it sees it's got low fuel, is very inclined to immediately run away back to their cities to refuel. And that buys you time, which obviously doesn't have a financial aspect to it, but at least it's something. The fact his air units suck is really unfortunate. 30% attack penalty for an air unit when air units do pretty much nothing but attack or die on the defense. That does hurt. But then when you think about Jess, she has a penalty to her air units as well. Not 30% at least. But she does have a penalty to her air units, so you're still not all that incentivized to build them. And her real issue is kind of, she does the opposite, right? She refuels and re-ammos when she uses her powers, but that is really situational at best. And like I said, a lot of units die before they even run out of ammo the first time, so it's really not the biggest of deals. But her real struggle is that her infantry suck. It's really, really hard to capture properties when your infantry is worse than the other person's. And her infantry is worse than everybody's. in this game, and that is a really difficult thing to overcome, because you'll have a really hard time disrupting somebody else's capture. And obviously if you don't interrupt it, they're making more money than you, which means they'll build more things than you, and then it turns around very, very quickly, against you. And the bonus she gets to a land vehicles just isn't substantial enough to matter, in the same way that the 10% penalty for Colin's units in general don't matter really. The 10% bonus doesn't really matter too much either. Eagle is finally starting to get back on this map, though. We are slowly making some progress. He also has his superpower available. And yes, we do have quite a few tanks still sitting around his border, but now at least we have enough units to kind of fight back, so that they don't just all go and sit on Colin and ruin his day further. So yeah, Eagle does eventually start making a little bit of progress. Slowly but surely, right? So we're getting there. So yeah, definitely for me, Eagle, Drake, Jess when it comes to Green Earth. It's always nice to get a bomber taken out. That always feels good. And then, yes, we have to think finally. So, Black Hole is a bit more difficult to gauge than the last three, because obviously they have more commanding officers. We have, as the cannon goes, Boom, Sturm, Hawk, Adder, Lash, and Flak. So we have 5 to work with. I'm going to slow the pace down just a little bit. We're at a 1.5 times speed. Isn't that a beautiful thing? It's not difficult to work out which one's the worst. Let's go in reverse order this time. So let's go with the worst CO. Flak is the worst commanding officer, not just in Black Hole, but in the game, and by an absolute country mile. Because, again, all of his troops are standard. His luck is the only thing that's different, and it just means that he can do more damage or he can do less, and it's really hard to work with a commanding officer that is so unpredictable. And the fact that his superpower and regular power just increase the range of how much damage he can do is just the worst. You may have noticed, by the way, while we were talking, we have 2 bombers, a medium tank, and an anti-air in play. So, we're in a good spot. So, not going to complain too much. I'm actually going to turn the speed right down to regular. Isn't that a beautiful thing? I'm still going to put the music in manually, though. So that's perfectly fine. So yeah, Flak's definitely the worst. Adder is definitely the next worst, because all he has going for him is more movement occasionally when he uses his powers. That's it. He is a very unremarkable CO. A very balanced CO, I'd say. Fun to play as, but not strong. Then it actually becomes a little bit more tricky. Because, well, it's not going to be much of a spoiler to say Sturm's the best CO of the 5. He's definitely the top. He's like, nobody's even coming close to him within Black Hole. But then, which one is better? Eagle or Lash? And this is one of those things, again, where over time, as you get older and more wise, I feel like this answer changes. So, when you're a kid playing this game for the first time, you see that Hawk is, the superior for all of the COs in Black Hole except Sturm. And he always has that 10% attack bonus. And he sounds so confident, and he obviously has a global damaging CO and superpower. It all sounds very, very good on paper. And don't get me wrong, it's not bad. But when you're first playing it as a kid, all of that just looks good on paper. So you're inclined to kind of gravitate towards them. However, when you start doing the maths in this game for how Lash works, you start to realize that she is deceptively good. So I know, as I mentioned the first time we saw her in combat, she gets a 10% attack penalty. I wish. The 10% attack bonus for every defensive terrain star she has. So if she attacks you from a mountain, she's going to get a 40% attack bonus. And then I have to think about it. I'm like, well, how often are you going to have certain types of terrain? You're going to have at least plains most of the time, right? And that's going to give you 10%. But if you were attacking from a city, that's 30%. And that's going to be fairly common. Might as well use this silo because we can. You can't shoot a cannon with a silo, but we can certainly ruin that bomber's day if we wanted to. Do we want to? There's a lot of options. We could also help Colin. This is how Colin doesn't completely capitulate despite the fact I made a mistake. because we can just throw a silo down there, soften Sturm up, and then we're fine. That's definitely not the most financially valuable thing I could have hit, but it's fine. So I actually think over time, the more I'm inclined to think Lash is a better CO, especially when you think her superpower gives pretty much unlimited terrain movement. That is massive, especially if you can, for example, use your superpower, move your indirects into a location they would normally never be able to really get to due to their horrendous movement on tires, and then you can just sit on, say, a forest with a 20% bonus forever, just shooting the opposition to death over and over and over again. It's pretty strong. So I would actually say that she is a better overall CO than Hawk. Obviously, where Lash really does come unstuck is, well, she can't get a bonus off her air units because they never have any defensive stars. But her ground battle performance is so good that I would say she's probably slightly better than Hawk, but not by a huge amount. So it would be Sturm, Lash, Hawk, Adder, Flak. I mean, Flak should be off the screen, should be down here. Like, you know, all the way down here. It should be kind of on the floor of my desk. Just nowhere near. Terrible CO. I get it. They had to make the starting commanding officer that you face really, really bad, just as a tutorial, and they pretty much did the same thing in Dual Strike. They just gave you a robot version of Flak, realistically, as the first opponent there. But yeah, he is incredibly bad, and I wish they'd given him something to make him at least not completely unviable. Like, if they could they not have just given him like one type of unit that he's actually quite good with, like anything? Could it have just been the things that explode? Could it have just been that, you know, he does extra damage with explosive weaponry? Maybe he's like his bazookas and his bombers do more damage. I mean, his name's Flak. Why don't they make his anti-air better? Given that it uses a, well, it's called a Vulcan cannon, but it's a Flak cannon. Like, I don't get it. Like, they just made him so incredibly bad. Anyway, at this point in the game, on this map, we are pretty good. Colin's been able to afford to get a couple of medium tanks, so we're good there. They're still, because the AI in this game really doesn't think anything through when it comes to building units. He's still building units that make no sense. This fighter is finally going away. It's been a pain in our butt for pretty much 90% of the mission so far, but we now no longer have to worry about it. I have no idea why. Did you see the top three, you know, in the corners on the top left and the top right, there's 3 cannons protecting the silos? I have no idea why you would ever go that way. And boom, one shot. You'd think they would have given it more hit points. But no, they did not. And now we have to go and just take out the platform. And Sturm still wants us to launch the missile anyway. It doesn't work. And then we all get to go and celebrate. Isn't it wonderful? And please don't read too much of the text. It's horrendous. Sturm's just like, oh, I'm going to do a self-destruct sequence now. Oh, that's terrible. And no. Sturm just calling everybody a worm over and over again. That's just like his buzzword. But then Hawk comes in and gets rid of the problem. And that is the plot. So Hawk is going to go and take all the remnants of Black Hole somewhere. I don't know, he might as well take them to the moon on vacation. And yeah, it's rubbish. We're just going to skip through the rest of this. I don't even want to read this. I can't actually skip. I'm just going to increase the speed, but we don't need any of that. They just disappear. So they might as well do the Team Rocket thing. They've blasted off again. Yeah. The only thing that could have made this worse if it had super cheesy, like incredibly cheesy voice acting go with it. Our score's horrendous. Don't get me wrong. Super bad. But we don't really care. And then it's a case of, oh, happily ever after. I'm going to pause the video. War is over, and there definitely was no more war ever again. Yeah, we're not going to talk about real life. That's depressing. But yeah, definitely didn't stop there being war in the world of whichever planet Advance Wars decided to pick that day either. Don't look at the plot. It makes no sense. Anyway, we didn't end up talking a huge amount about that mission because, and it was a trait of the other one too, the black hole missions just aren't very fun. This one is more fun than the penultimate mission. The penultimate mission, honestly, you could let the game play itself. And it just feels like, you know, it's just build 100 units, throw them all at the AI at once, winning happens. This one's a bit more work, but it's not a massively complicated mission. It's just a really drawn out mission because you can't break through the pipes, right? You can break the pipe seams, but you can't break the actual pipes themselves. So it's just designed to be a labyrinth. Like I said, it's weird that they didn't put like a pipe in with a pipe seam in front of the Laser of Doom. They didn't increase the health of the Laser of Doom. They didn't have units that would permanently sit back with the Laser of Doom. It's very, very weird. I mean, I did this because this is how I know you can win this mission. But you can just pretty much just sneak a bomber through, and it's with if anybody in terms of CO that has more than neutral attack with a bomber gets through, it's a one-shot. As you saw there with Max, where it's like nearly 20% over the threshold. So it's actually deceptively easy. It's hard. It's a lot harder if you're going to go for try and get a perfect score. My power score stank something fierce because, well, the whole point of how I performed there was to kind of, you know, hold everything up and sneak a couple of units, infiltrate through the system and blow up the laser. Really, if you were going to do that for min-maxing score, you would wait for Sturm to bring a whole load of units down. You could pick a CO that does global damage, for example, and then just use another one like Kanbei in the middle to coup de grace them all if you can afford to do it. But we don't need to do any of that. This video has been going on for long enough now, so if you did enjoy the series, definitely let me know. Let me know if you want to see anything else from the Advance Wars series. It can be any of the games. We'll cross that bridge, you know, how we would get it recorded in the future. And yeah, for now, I will let this trail off. Appreciate your time. Have a wonderful rest of your day, guys. Take care now.